also murdered her.
Palestinians had been fleeing their homes for safer places since December 1947. But after Deir Yassin, a mass exodus began. Menachem Begin, the Irgun's leader, said the massacre was a lie, propagated by his political rivals and by Jew haters around the world. But Begin said the legend of terror was worth half a dozen battalions because Arabs were seized with panic when they heard the Irgun was coming. Palestinian radio made the atrocity sound even worse than it was, to stiffen Arab resistance. The reports made the civilians even more terrified.
May God curse the reporters who came to us. They were servants of Jewish imperialism. They published stories about their crimes, the massacre, how they violated our women. This helped the Jews, not us. It scared us and made us worry about our honor.
King Abdullah of Transjordan and other Arab leaders came under strong domestic pressure to intervene. Ben Gurion sent Abdullah an apology. Four days after Deir Yassin, there was another massacre. A column of Jewish doctors and nurses was attacked by Palestinians at Mount Scopus in Jerusalem. Their vehicles were set on fire and many were burnt to death. 78 people were killed. Jaffa, just south of Tel Aviv, was in the Arab state in the partition plan. What happened here helps explain why so many Palestinians fled. In April 1948, Arab sniping out of Jaffa was answered by heavy shelling from the Irgun.
The Jews attacked Jaffa, and by bombarding Jaffa, they made the conditions for the Arabs to leave, because the Arabs were afraid that they will be killed. So it wasn't voluntarily, but it was a result of the battle.
But the flight was triggered by more than force.
We let them know in different ways, not in pamphlets, not over the radio, not officially. We let them understand that it's better if they leave because the Jews are terrible. And don't stay here when the Jews come in.
So this was psychological warfare?
In a small scale.
The people flee because of this massacre that happened in Deir Yassin. They were afraid that the same thing will happen here in Jaffa.
Palestinian society was collapsing. Some Israelis claim that the Palestinians were leaving on the orders of Arab leaders to wait for victory. Jewish leaders had discussed moving Arabs out of Palestine for years, but denied that was anything to do with their departure.
Does Israel bear any responsibility for the exodus of Palestinians in 1948?
No.
There are some historians who say that Plan D was a blueprint for the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, of Arabs. Is that true?
No. You know, as I say, I was present at the creation. I don't mind what the historians are writing. I watched with their own eyes. Ben Gurion did not want that the Arabs will leave the country.
When we spoke to President Peres in Jerusalem, he said that Israel bears no responsibility whatsoever for the exodus of Palestinians.
No responsibility whatsoever. Then what caused the exodus to happen? It was the Israeli massacre of villagers, of people whom they encountered. I can count to you scores of massacres which happened all over the country. Do you think that anybody would leave his home unless he was really threatened?
That's what Peres said to us.
I'm surprised that President Peres has said so.
The 14th of May 1948, the last day of the British Mandate. Britain's legacy to Palestine was a legal system, red pillar boxes, chaos, and war. The same day, David Ben-Gurion announced that the State of Israel would come into existence at midnight. Within hours, the country was under attack.
We heard the explosions, and I said to my wife, I said, the game's on. They're bombing Tel Aviv. Their main targets were the Reading power station, the Tel Aviv airfield, the central bus station, and they were really bombing Tel Aviv with impunity because there was nothing to stop them.
That day, 5 Arab states invaded. The Egyptians advanced from the south towards the main Jewish center of Tel Aviv. The Lebanese barely crossed the northern border, with the Syrians attacking at either end of the Sea of Galilee. Further south came the Iraqis, while in the center, Transjordan's Arab Legion advanced towards the West Bank and Jerusalem. The invading force was between 25 to 30,000, against around 35,000 Israelis. Although the invasion was under the nominal command of King Abdullah of Transjordan, each country made its own plans. Abdullah had been having secret but inconclusive negotiations with Jewish leaders about carving up Palestine between them. He also wanted to add Lebanon and Syria to his kingdom to make an Arab superstate. No wonder other Arab leaders didn't trust him. They didn't trust each other either. They'd all have liked a piece of Palestine for themselves, and destroying the Jewish state at birth would have made them into national heroes. But they knew their capacity to do it was limited.
Some of the Arab states went to war just to satisfy the ambitions of their common classes. Some of the Arab states wanted to prevent King Abdullah from controlling more areas from the Arab states. Some of the states were forcing themselves to go to war, otherwise the Arab people will call them traitors.
Most of the invading troops were like Egypt's, well armed but badly trained and led. Egypt's King Farouk sent his men to war against the advice of his government. Transjordan's Arab Legion was commanded by British officers. It was the most effective Arab fighting force, but small, 8,000 men. It only fought for land allocated to the Arabs by the partition plan and in Jerusalem.
The Jordanians consider Jerusalem and Palestine as the diamond of the Middle East. Because of the spiritual and religious significance we have as Muslims and Arabs. So we considered the capture of Jerusalem as our incentive as Jordanian fighters, and we fought hard to defend it.
For the first month after the invasion, it was touch and go for the Israelis.
The old city of Jerusalem was under attack by the Jordanian army, so we were stretched all over the place, and there were very, very few units who were free to fight everywhere else. And the situation at that time, I think, was the most critical during the War of Independence.
Kibbutz Ramat Rachel, near Bethlehem. Here the Israelis fought to stop the Egyptians linking up with the Arab Legion to encircle Jerusalem. The building behind me was the dining hall here at Kibbutz Ramat Rachel. It was the strongest building in the place on the highest point, and it was there that the Israelis set up their headquarters and decided to make their stand.
You know, it's been 60 years since I was here last. 60 years, that's a long time.
It sure is.
There's the wall, and all those pocket marks from the bombardment, from the shelling.
You were up here when you were wounded. What happened?
The truth is, I don't know what happened. A shell exploded in my face, and I got covered with shrapnel all over my body. I couldn't see. I thought I was blind.
The Israelis held on to Ramat Rachel, but the Arab Legion kept up the pressure on Jewish-controlled Jerusalem by cutting the supply route from Tel Aviv. To reopen it, the Israelis tried and failed repeatedly to take Latrun, a strong point on the Jerusalem road. The first time they thought it was defended by Palestinian irregulars. Instead, they faced well-dug-in professionals from the Arab Legion.
We were encountered by a tremendous fire of machine guns and mortars and so forth. The heat was absolutely about 40, 42 degrees, and in the shadow. We didn't have enough water, of course, and people were hit all the time. Now, I myself, I was wounded first time in the morning. I got a bullet in my shoulder, and then about 10 o'clock I got another shrapnel in my chest. And the situation was hopeless, as far as we are concerned.
In Jerusalem's walled Old City, the Jewish quarter fell to the Arab Legion. Over 1,000 Jewish civilians lost their homes. Almost 23,000 Palestinians left districts of the city captured by Jewish forces during the war. The Legion kept the Jewish-controlled west of the city under siege, but never risked trying to capture it.
I think that people fired.
For the Israelis, the breakthrough was finding a cross-country route to ferry supplies and pump water that bypassed the Arab Legion's positions.
We assembled 13 jeeps. One of them belonged to Ben Gurion. We loaded them with about more than half a ton per jeep, medical supplies, ammunition, weapons. We knew exactly what the situation in Jerusalem is.
How important was it for the Jewish forces to hang on in Jerusalem?
It's unbelievable how people felt about Jerusalem. They knew that without Jerusalem there's no Jewish state.
On the southern front, the Egyptian army advanced north towards Tel Aviv, avoiding smaller Israeli settlements. But Kibbutz Yad Mordechai was too big to ignore. On the 24th of May, Egyptian armor and infantry attacked.
Here in front of me, I have no bullets and I have no rifles to reach them. I need a mortar, I need something. And I was very, very angry that I can't shoot there in front of me. And I can't do nothing because the distance is too wide. I have no rifle, I have no munition and no aims to defend myself or to attack them.
Outnumbered and out of ammunition, the Israeli forces had to retreat. But they had bought time to establish a defense line further north, where the Egyptians were stopped before they could reach Tel Aviv. After nearly a month's fighting, the United Nations secured a 4-week ceasefire. During the truce, both sides rearmed, but Israel had the edge, with big deliveries from Czechoslovakia of modern weapons, including heavy guns and aircraft. Although hugely outnumbered by Arabs in the Middle East, Israel was always able to mobilize more soldiers. It was now better equipped, organized, and motivated.
As far as you were concerned, it was a life or death struggle.
Absolutely. This was Israel's most fateful war. It was a case of to be or not to be.
When the ceasefire ended after a month, the Israelis were ready for what one of their top generals called a series of sharp, short, decisive